The Red Keep stood quiet, but Cersei Lannister's thoughts were loud. Her son Joffrey had just turned 13, and already he had started to show signs of cruelty that made even the servants whisper behind their hands. She had seen it, the way he looked at people like they were insects under his shoe, the smirk when someone cried, the way he lied without blinking. Cersei knew power, and she knew what happened when it wasn't shaped carefully. But she had made a decision. She would not let her golden lion cub turn into a mad dog, not like the Mad King, not like his father, Robert, or rather, not like the man everyone thought was his father. That morning she found Joffrey in the training yard. He wasn't training. He was watching a younger stable boy try to fight against a bigger knight for fun. The stable boy had tears in his eyes. Joffrey laughed. "Enough," Cersei said, stepping down the stairs, her voice sharp like a blade. "Get rid of the knight. Send the boy to the maester." Joffrey turned, surprised. "Mother, it was just—" "I said enough." She cut him off, her green eyes fixed on his. He clenched his jaw. "You always ruin everything, and you always forget who made you prince," she said quietly, walking closer. "Do you want to sit on the Iron Throne one day? Then act like someone worthy of it." That night, she summoned Tyrion. "You've always been clever," she said. "Your mind is sharp, even if your body is less so." Tyrion sipped his wine, amused. "Is this your version of a compliment or an insult?" "I need your help," she admitted, a rare thing for Cersei. "I want you to guide Joffrey, teach him how to think, how to rule, how not to let his worst self take over." Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "You mean you want me to be his leash? Call it what you will. I'll give you freedom, gold, whatever you want. Just make him better." "Better." Tyrion looked into his cup, then at her. "And if he refuses to listen," Cersei's voice went cold, "then I will make him listen." From that day, Joffrey's life changed. Cersei made him attend council meetings where he had to sit quietly and listen. She made him read letters from the small folk, complaints and cries for justice. She took him to Flea Bottom in disguise so he could see the starving children, the beggars missing hands, the girls sold before they were 10. "Do you see?" she asked him once as they watched a mother try to trade her last piece of bread for medicine. "This is what your crown is built on. Not gold, not steel, them." At first he resisted. He screamed, broke plates, cursed at Tyrion, threw his tutors into the dungeons. But each time, Cersei responded not with anger, but cold punishment. No court, no games, no hunting, no wine. Just more books, more lessons, more harsh truths. And Tyrion, witty, cruel in his own way, but fair, challenged him. "A true king doesn't fear words, Joffrey. Only cowards silence people." Bit by bit, something began to change. Joffrey no longer laughed when someone cried. He still frowned, still snapped, but less. Once, a guard struck a servant too hard. Joffrey made him kneel and apologize. Another time, a noble mocked a crippled boy. Joffrey asked him if he'd like to fight someone who couldn't stand. Cersei watched it all with cautious hope, but hope in King's Landing was like a flame in the wind. Dangerous, uncertain. One evening, she sat alone, wine in hand, watching the sky darken over the Blackwater Bay. Her thoughts drifted to the future. If she could truly mold Joffrey, make him a ruler people feared and loved, maybe she wouldn't need to marry him off to some foreign girl. Maybe he could be more than just a lion's cub. Maybe he could be more than just a lion's cub. Maybe he could be a true king. But shadows always lingered in corners of the Red Keep, because power does not disappear, it only hides, and someone was watching her every move. Days turned into weeks, and whispers began to float around the Red Keep. The small folk had noticed the prince wasn't as cruel. Some called it a miracle. Others said the boy was just playing games. But inside the court, the change was making enemies. Varys was the first to comment. "A gentler lion is still a lion, my queen," he said softly, his hands folded in those long sleeves. "And wolves might grow brave if they sense softness." Cersei smiled, but her eyes were hard. Let them try. Behind the mask of peace, the court remained poisonous. The Tyrells, the Martells, and even the old Lannister bannermen watched Joffrey with suspicion. They had all grown used to the mad prince, the one they could predict, manipulate, or fear. But a clever prince, one shaped by Cersei and Tyrion. That was dangerous. In private, Cersei warned her son. "You are being watched by everyone," she said one evening, combing his golden hair like when he was a boy. "They want you to fail. Don't give them reason." Joffrey looked into the mirror, his face older than his years. "I'm not afraid of them." "You should be," she said. "Fear is not weakness. It is survival." But the danger wasn't only outside. In the shadows of the castle, someone was working to undo all of Cersei's efforts. It began with the return of Sir Meryn Trant. Once removed quietly after Cersei caught him training Joffrey in Cruelty, slicing up prisoners just to make the boy laugh, now he returned under the banner of loyal service. It was Littlefinger who brought him back, claiming the court needed strong hands again. Cersei met Littlefinger in her solar, wine untouched. "You dare bring that snake back into my court?" Littlefinger only smiled. "A snake in a cage, my lady, is still useful. Besides, boys need their swords sharpened." "I'm sharpening his mind," she said, "not his bloodlust." Littlefinger leaned in, lowering his voice. "Then I must ask, do you want a king or a scholar? Because when war comes, and it always comes, books won't save the throne." Cersei hated how right he sounded. She wanted Joffrey strong, feared, but just. But where was the line? Where did control end and nature begin? That night, she sent for Tyrion again. "He needs to be firm," she admitted. "Not soft, not mad. But I'm afraid if I push too far, he'll snap like his real father." Tyrion poured himself more wine. Madness runs deep in bloodlines, but madness also grows in the soil it's planted. He looked at her. "You're trying to raise a lion among snakes. Just don't be surprised if he bites you first." Cersei said nothing, but that night she visited Joffrey's chambers without knocking. He was standing by the window, looking over the moonlit city. "Do you ever wonder," he asked quietly, "if they'll love me one day?" She blinked. "Love is for fools. They must respect you. But what if they love someone else more?" That one sentence made her blood chill. She stepped forward. "Who do you mean?" He turned, voice flat. "Tommen." The name stung like a slap. Sweet Tommen. Quiet, kind, gentle, had started gaining attention lately. Lords praised his calmness. Scepters said he was a boy with a pure heart. Some even whispered he'd make a better king. Cersei grabbed Joffrey's hands. "You are the heir. The Iron Throne is yours, by right, by fire, by name. No one, not even your brother, can change that." "But what if they want him?" Joffrey asked, a trace of anger flashing in his voice. She stared into his eyes, searching for that old cruelty. That boy, who'd once ordered a man's tongue ripped out for singing the wrong song. But what she saw now was worse. Fear, jealousy, doubt. And fear in the prince was dangerous. So Cersei made a decision. She would protect Joffrey's place at any cost, even if it meant hurting the ones she loved. Outside, the wind howled against the tower windows. Somewhere below, a raven took flight into the night carrying a message. But who sent it, and who would receive it? King's Landing was quiet again. Too quiet. The days that followed brought a shift in the air, like a storm building far away, but certain to arrive. Cersei noticed the sideways glances from the court, the servants whispering louder, the silence that followed her footsteps. She had ruled through fear before, but now they were not afraid of her. They were watching Joffrey and judging, and worst of all, they were comparing. Prince Tommen visited the Sept again, Pycelle noted during council, his voice filled with that soft, slow tone old men use when pretending to be harmless. The people said he prayed for the poor. Such a kind boy. Cersei's lips tightened. Prayers don't feed mouths, Grand Maester, but they warm hearts, Pycelle said, eyes twinkling, the hearts of those who bend the knee. After the meeting, she found Joffrey alone in the gardens. He was meant to be reading a scroll about the line of succession, but instead he was tossing pebbles at a birdcage. The sparrows inside flinched at every hit. "Do you think Tommen wants to take my crown?" he asked without looking up. "No," she said, walking closer, "but others might want him to." Joffrey gripped another stone. "What should I do?" Cersei sat beside him on the marble bench. "You do nothing yet. You let them talk. Let them whisper. Then, when they feel safe, when they believe you are weak, you show them they were wrong." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. The next day, a raven arrived from High Garden. Margaery Tyrell had written a letter, sweet, flattering, filled with pretty words. She asked to visit the capital, to meet the noble prince, and understand the kingdom she might one day serve beside. Cersei read the letter 3 times. She knew Margaery's game. The Tyrells had always wanted power wrapped in silken perfume. A marriage offer was just a polite way of saying, "We want your throne." That evening, she sat in her chambers, staring at the fire. If Joffrey married Margaery, the Tyrells would be family, allies. But if Margaery saw his weaknesses, or worse, his doubts, she could twist him, use her softness to control him, just like how Sansa once tried. No, not yet. She summoned Varys. "You will spread a rumor," she said. "Something small, just enough to delay Margaery's visit." Varys blinked slowly. "And what flavor shall this rumor be, my queen?" "Something about her. Affections, that she once shared her bed with her brother." Even Varys paused at that. "Cruel," he murmured. "And dangerous." Paused at that. "Cruel," he murmured. "And dangerous." Cersei stared into the fire. So is power. Meanwhile, Tyrion continued training Joffrey in courtly matters, strategy, diplomacy, even mercy. But he too noticed the boy changing. Joffrey was listening less. He interrupted more. And once, when Tyrion told him to ignore a petty insult from a lord, Joffrey snapped, "If I ignore it, they'll think I'm weak. You don't understand what it means to be king." Tyrion leaned back, studying him. "No, nephew, I understand it too well. That's why I drink." Later, Tyrion spoke to Cersei alone. "You're losing him," he warned. "You're squeezing too tight, and his claws are growing sharper." Cersei didn't answer. But that night, she stood outside Joffrey's chambers and listened through the door. Inside, he was speaking to someone, Sir Meryn. "Would it really be that easy?" Joffrey whispered. "Just make it look like an accident." Cersei's blood froze. "Who?" Sir Meryn asked, his voice low. A pause. "Tommen." She stepped back like she'd been struck. Her hand clutched the wall. The air felt thin. Joffrey, her son, was thinking of killing his brother. No, this wasn't just fear anymore. This was darkness. She returned to her room and sat for hours, wine untouched. She had worked so hard to tame him. She had stripped away his cruelty layer by layer, taught him to listen, to think, to rule. But beneath all that polish, the monster still breathed. Smarter now. Colder. Hidden. She had turned the wild lion into something worse, a calculating one. The question now wasn't whether Joffrey would be a good king, it was whether anyone could stop him if he wasn't. The nights in King's Landing had never felt longer. Cersei barely slept now. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Tommen's face, sweet, innocent, untouched by the filth of power. And then she saw Joffrey, shadowed behind him, whispering lies to blades. She wanted to believe it had just been talk, that Joffrey was testing Meryn, testing himself. But she had ruled too long to pretend. Men didn't whisper about murder unless they had already imagined the blood. She called Tommen to her chambers the next day. He ran in, smiling, holding a wooden lion she'd given him when he was small. "Mother, I saw a white dove near the stables today." She smiled back, but her heart cracked. He was too soft for this world, and in a kingdom ruled by his brother, softness was death. She pulled him close. "Tommen, listen to me. From now on, I want you to stay in the Tower of the Hand with your Uncle Tyrion." His face fell. "But why? I don't like it there. I want to be with you." "I know, sweetling, but Tyrion has the best books, and he'll teach you to be strong, strong like a lion." Tommen pouted. "Is Joffrey angry with me?" Cersei hesitated. "No, but he has a lot on his mind. Sometimes when people are under pressure, they forget how to be kind." She kissed his forehead. As soon as he left, her smile faded. Later that evening, she went to Tyrion. "He must be protected," she said, her voice like steel. "And not just from knives, Tyrion, from whispers, from poison, even from his own brother." Tyrion's eyes widened. "So it's true then? Joffrey is." "Yes," she said. "He's thinking about it. And Meryn Trant is too stupid to stop him." Tyrion poured himself more wine than usual. "And what would you have me do? Hide Tommen in a castle across the sea?" "If I must," she said. Tyrion leaned in. "Then you already know what you should have known long ago." "What's that?" "That Joffrey may be your son, but he's not your future." She didn't respond, but her silence said everything. The court moved on as if nothing had changed. But Cersei had changed. She watched Joffrey now, not with pride, but with suspicion. And Joffrey noticed. One morning, he stormed into her chambers. "You think I don't know you're watching me?" he said, eyes blazing. "Tommen this, Tommen that, always protecting him." "I am protecting you," she snapped back, "from doing something you can't undo." "He's weak," Joffrey said. "They laugh behind our backs. They say the wrong son was born first. Then prove them wrong." Cersei shouted. Not with death, with power, with control. But Joffrey's hands were shaking. "I'm trying," he muttered. "I am trying, but it's like something is crawling inside my skin. Like I want to burn everything just to stop the itching." Cersei's heart broke, not just in fear, but in guilt. She reached for him, but he pulled away. That night, she made another choice. She sent a raven to Maester Qyburn, dismissed long ago from the citadel for his unusual methods. She needed answers that Pycelle would never give. Qyburn arrived 2 days later, cloaked in grey, eyes sharp as knives. "I need to know," she said. "Is madness born in blood, or can it be cured?" Qyburn smiled faintly. "Oh, it can be shaped," he said, "but never fully removed. Some fire is too deep in the bone." "Can it be managed?" "Yes, but with cost, and sometimes sacrifice." Cersei nodded. "Tell me what I need to do." The next day, Joffrey was sent on a hunt outside the city. A quiet journey, just a few men, a chance to breathe. But that night, 2 of the guards who rode with him did not return. One was found face down in a creek, his neck broken. The other vanished. Joffrey returned with a calm expression. "They tried to ambush me," he said simply. Cersei didn't believe him. Neither did Tyrion. But neither of them said a word, because in the eyes of the court, the prince had survived an attack, and in the eyes of his enemies, Joffrey was now unpredictable. deadlier, and very much alone. The city buzzed with talk of the ambush. Whispers twisted faster than wildfire. Some claimed Joffrey had fought off 10 men with a single sword. Others said it was a message from the north. But no one dared question the prince directly. His silence was more frightening than his rage had ever been. Joffrey had changed. He no longer threw tantrums or shouted across the hall. Now he watched, listened, and when he spoke, it was sharp, cold, and final. Cersei noticed the change most, and though part of her was proud, the wild lion had become calculating, composed. A deeper part of her was afraid, because the boy she had tried to shape was beginning to shape himself, and he was shaping into something she couldn't control. In the small council chamber, Joffrey began attending meetings without invitation. He sat at the end of the table, quiet but alert. When Pycelle spoke too long, Joffrey would yawn loudly. When Littlefinger made a suggestion, Joffrey asked for the numbers behind it. When Varys smiled, Joffrey didn't smile back. Tyrion leaned toward Cersei one evening after a particularly cold meeting. "He's not just learning anymore, he's testing us." Cersei didn't answer, because she knew. She had raised a king with teeth, and he was starting to bite. That night, as she walked through the quiet halls, a shadow slipped beside her. "Varys, my queen," he said in his soft spider voice, "you've done something remarkable. Truly, the boy is no longer a fool. He's a force." Cersei kept walking. "What are you getting at?" "I'm getting at what comes next. The people don't like to be ruled by shadows. They need light. And between you and your son, there is little left of that in the capital." She stopped. "Are you threatening me, Varys?" "Never," he said. "But I do worry. Power is like wildfire, beautiful and deadly, and once it spreads, no one is safe." She watched him disappear into the darkness. 2 days later, she found one of her handmaidens weeping in the servants' quarters. "Speak," Cersei commanded. The girl hesitated. "My lady, I only listened. I didn't say anything." "To what?" "The prince. He was speaking with Sir Meryn about the small council. About you. He said," Cersei grabbed her wrist. "He said, what? That you were too emotional. That soon it would be time for the lioness to step aside." Cersei's breath left her body. She released the girl and walked away without a word. Her heart was pounding. Rage, fear, but above all, betrayal. From her own son. She went to Tyrion at once. "He's plotting something," she said. "I don't know what yet, but it's coming." Tyrion stared into the fire. "He's been watching you, you know. The way you move the council, how you press behind the curtain." Cersei gritted her teeth. "Everything I've done was for him." Tyrion nodded. "Yes, but now he thinks he doesn't need you." A knock interrupted them. A raven, a message from Dawn. It was short, cold, and clear. "We have heard the rumors. If Tommen is not seen soon, we will assume the worst." Tyrion read it aloud. "They're afraid you've hidden him. Or worse." Cersei's hands trembled. Joffrey wasn't just silencing enemies now. He was preparing to silence family. The next morning, she walked through the halls with her cloak pulled high, eyes darting. She found Tommen asleep in Tyrion's chambers, a book falling from his chest. She stood there a long time, watching his chest rise and fall. He had no idea how close he was to death, and Joffrey, her golden boy, her firstborn, had crossed a line. It wasn't a matter of if anymore. It was when. When would Joffrey make his move? And more terrifying, what would she do when he did? Because the truth had become too clear now. She was not just a mother. She was a queen standing between a monster and a throne. Cersei Lannister had played many games in the Red Keep, against schemers, against kings, against fate itself, but never before against her own son. The boy she had once rocked in her arms, kissed on the brow, and sworn to protect with fire and steel, now stood on the other side of the board, and he was moving his pieces, supply, deadly. The first blow came in silence. Pycelle was found dead in his quarters, face purple, eyes wide in horror. Poison, too clean for an old man to have brewed himself. There were no signs of struggle, no shattered glass, just a small cup of wine, half drunk. He was slowing down the council, Joffrey said coldly at the meeting the next day. His advice was more dust than wisdom. Cersei kept her face still, but inside her heart roared. This wasn't justice. This was a message. He wasn't afraid to kill a council member. He wouldn't be afraid to kill again. Later that night, she met with Tyrion in the cellar under the Tower of the Hand. They spoke in whispers. "He's testing limits," Tyrion said. "He's removing anyone who speaks slower than he moves." "He's becoming something worse than I feared," Cersei murmured. "And I made him that way." Tyrion shrugged. "It's not the shaping, sister. It's the steel you used. Some boys bend." Joffrey breaks things. She closed her eyes. "I thought if I could guide his rage, I could make him powerful." "You did," Tyrion said, pouring wine. "You just forgot to give him a heart." The next move came 2 days later. Sir Meryn Trant was promoted to Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Jaime's position, her twin's post, was stripped without warning. Jaime arrived the same day, summoned from the Riverlands. His fury was legendary. He stormed through the Red Keep in full armor, demanding answers. Cersei stopped him before he reached the throne room. "You can't challenge him," she warned. "Not in public, not with swords. I trained that boy to hold a blade," Jaime spat. "I'll show him what it feels like to lose." "If you do that," she said, stepping in front of him, "he'll have Tommen killed before your blade leaves its sheath." Jaime froze. His knuckles tightened around his sword hilt, but he said nothing more. Joffrey, for his part, welcomed his uncle like a king, welcomes a guest he's already poisoned. "You're old now," he said in front of the entire court. "Let the young lions take the lead." Jaime's smile was thin. "Careful, boy. Lions still bite." Joffrey didn't flinch. By the end of the week, Cersei realized her influence was shrinking by the hour. Her allies were gone, her control over the court was slipping, and even Tommen was starting to ask questions. "Why can't I see Joffrey anymore?" he asked one morning. Cersei lied. "He's busy. He wants you safe." But the boy frowned. "Uncle Tyrion says Joffrey looks at me like I'm a coin he might drop." Cersei nearly slapped him for repeating it, then pulled him into a hug instead. "He won't hurt you," she whispered. "I won't let him." But how long could she promise that? And then the nightmare she feared arrived. A raven, small, black, no seal. Inside, one sentence: "You have lost your grip. The boy is king now." No name, no threat, just truth. That night, Cersei stood in her solar, fire crackling, cup untouched. She stared at the flames, wondering if she had raised Aerys reborn, and worse, if she had no choice but to become Tywin. The only way to stop Joffrey now might be to do what no mother should ever imagine. She opened her drawer and pulled out a small vial one Qyburn had prepared, a sleeping draught strong enough to quiet a bear, or a lion cub. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Not yet," because this wasn't over, and if she was going to kill her son, she needed to be absolutely certain that she had to. Cersei wore black the next morning, not for mourning, but for war. She sat at the edge of her bed, fingers tight around the vial Qyburn had given her. It was still unopened, but it burned in her palm like dragon fire. She had told herself it was only a precaution, a mother's defense, but part of her had already imagined how it would feel, slipping it into his wine, watching his face, feeling her world collapse in silence. She could almost hear his voice. "You said I'd be great, Mother." She shut her eyes. In the hallway outside, boots echoed, fast, urgent, then a knock. Tyrion entered without waiting. "You need to move. Now. What is it?" He tossed a rolled-up parchment in front of her. "The execution orders. 5 names, all yours." She unrolled it. Qyburn, Tyrion Lannister, Jaime Lannister, Jaime Lannister, Maester Balabar, Sir Osmond Kettleblack. Her hands went cold. "Signed by Joffrey?" she asked. "Stamped. Wax still wet." "He dares," Tyrion nodded. "You gave him claws, sister, and he's using them." She stood quickly. "Where's Tommen?" "With Bronn. Hidden. For now." Hidden. For now." "And Jaime?" "On his way to the stables. He's planning to ride out before the guards get the order." Cersei's breath came fast. "He's trying to wipe out anyone close to me." Tyrion poured himself a deep drink. "He's pruning the tree to make sure it bears only one kind of fruit, his." Cersei was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. "Then it's time." Tyrion looked up, his voice suddenly cautious. "Time for what?" She opened her palm. The vial glinted in the morning light. "No," Tyrion said instantly, backing a step. "You can't mean." "I do," she said. "If I wait any longer, he'll kill Tommen. He'll gut Jaime in the throne room. He'll tear this family apart. You still love him." "I do," she said, voice breaking, "and that's the punishment." She turned to him. "I need you to distract the court today. Hold a feast. Announce a false engagement. I don't care. Just give me one chance to end this before he ends us." Tyrion stared at her a long time, then nodded once. That afternoon, Cersei stood beside Joffrey in the throne room. She smiled at him like she always had, like a mother proud of her king. He barely glanced her way. The hall was filled with nobles, Tyrells, Martells, Lannister men. Tyrion was there too, drinking and laughing loudly with Bronn. A bard played soft music in the background, and the cup sat in front of Joffrey, golden, ornate, filled with arbor red. She approached slowly. "May I pour for you, my king?" He raised an eyebrow, then nodded. "You always did love to serve." She smiled. "Always." Her hand trembled only slightly as she lifted the small stopper from her ring, tipping the clear liquid into his cup. It vanished instantly into the wine. No change in color, no scent. She set it down and stepped back. Joffrey lifted it, then paused. He looked at her, not with suspicion, but with something worse. Recognition. Their eyes locked. He smiled faintly and set the cup down, untouched. Cersei froze. He waved a hand. From the shadows, Sir Meryn stepped forward, dragging someone behind him. Qyburn, bleeding, beaten, thrown at her feet. "Did you think I wouldn't know?" Joffrey said softly. "I've had your rooms watched for weeks, your servants paid, your letters read." The court gasped, but none stepped in. "I let it happen," he continued, "because I wanted to see how far you'd go. And now I know. Cersei didn't speak. She couldn't." "Take her to the tower," Joffrey said without emotion. "She's to be held. No harm. Not yet." Joffrey, Tyrion began, stepping forward. But Joffrey raised a hand. "Try to stop me, uncle. See what happens. Try to stop me, uncle. See what happens." Two king's guards stepped behind Cersei. Tyrion didn't move. As she was led away, her head held high, Cersei looked back once, at the son she'd raised, at the king she had built, and realized she hadn't created a ruler. She had created her own doom. The tower cell was cold, not damp, not dirty, just empty, a cruel kind of clean. Cersei sat on a narrow bed, hands folded in her lap, staring at the stone wall. No chains, no guards inside, only two outside the door. Joffrey wanted her alive, for now that was worse than death. For the first time in her life she was powerless. No whispers, no servants, no schemes, just silence and memories. She remembered holding Joffrey when he was born, his tiny fingers wrapped around hers, his first laugh, his first steps, the way he once cried for hours when she left him with a nurse. Where did that boy go, she wondered? Or worse, had he ever existed at all? 3 days passed. No food the first day, bread and water the second. On the third night, footsteps stopped outside her door. It opened. Joffrey walked in alone. No crown, no guards, just a black cloak and cold eyes. He looked older now. Not in years, in weight, in darkness. "You tried to kill me," he said calmly. "Yes," she replied. "No lies, no excuses." He studied her. Why? No lies, no excuses. He studied her. "Because I loved you," she said, "and because I loved Tommen, and Jaime, and this family." He laughed softly. "You loved control." She didn't deny it. "I tried to save you," she whispered, "from becoming this." "And I became this because of you," he snapped. The words cracked like thunder. "You taught me fear. You taught me lies. You taught me lies. You taught me that power is taken, not earned, that mercy is weakness." He stepped closer. "I only finished the lesson." Her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted you to be strong." "And I am," he said. She reached out, touching his arm. He didn't pull away. "Strong doesn't mean empty," she said. For a moment, just a moment, he looked uncertain, like a lost boy. Then it vanished. "You're being sent away," he said, "to Casterly Rock, quiet, forgotten." "Exile?" she asked. "Yes, yes, yes, and Tommen." "He will live," Joffrey said, "far from court, as long as he stays quiet. And Tyrion? Useful, for now." She nodded slowly. "Then do one thing for me," she said. "What?" "Rule better than me," she said. "What?" "Rule better than me." He didn't answer. He turned and left. The door closed. Cersei never saw him again. Months later, King's Landing changed. No public executions, no wild cruelty, no madness, just fear. Quiet, organized, efficient. Joffrey ruled like a blade. Precise. Cold. Sabha Free ruled like a blade. Precise. Deadly. Enemies vanished in the night. Rebels were crushed before they formed. Lords obeyed. The small folk stayed silent. The realm was stable, but it was hollow. Tyrion watched it from afar. So did Jaime. So did Tommen. A kingdom without laughter, without warmth, without hope. And Joffrey sat alone on the Iron Throne, surrounded by gold and shadows, trusted by no one, loved by none. Sometimes, late at night, he dreamed of a woman with green eyes, brushing his hair and telling him stories. He always woke up angry and empty. Years later, in exile, Cersei walked the cliffs of Casterly Rock, hair grey, face lined by regret. A messenger arrived one evening. The king was dead. Poison. Unknown hand. No heirs. No friends. No Morn hand. No Mern hand. No Merns. just a crown left on an empty chair. She closed her eyes. Tears fell silently. "I tried," she whispered to the sea, and for the first time in her life, she meant it.